Dementia residents need to be told why they are living, where they are living, by a person that they trust, and repeatedly if need be. This is really important, because if this isn't put in place, trust can fracture and it can be very difficult to build back. Also, the person needs to know where they're living and why they're living there, so that they can accept and assimilate what's happening with them. Otherwise, it's total confusion. There was one wife who had a husband admitted to the dementia facility, lovely guy, early 70s, Alzheimer's, and she said to him that he was coming in for medication checks and that his sleeping patterns needed to be adjusted. So he accepted that initially, but then of course realised that this wasn't the case. But she was sensible enough to then sit down with him and go through the whole scenario with it. Why he was there, for what reasons, his memory loss, what was happening. Repeatedly, she explained all this to him. And alongside that was extremely supportive. She came in daily, took him out for walks and trips and outings. She was a total mentor, solace, friend, companion, the whole works. She was as supportive as she could be. And because of that, even though she'd misled him initially, because in a sense she needed to, because he wouldn't have come in otherwise, soon after she told him the truth, and from that point on continued to tell him the way that things were. And he trusted her, he knew he had her support, and from that point on he was able to accept that he was living at the unit along with her love and support, and assimilated actually quite well into the dementia unit. Another example was of and by the way, this man, because he had the support of his wife and his son, astute son, even though he became severely depressed initially, he was not put on heavy medication. Now, this helped a lot. Because of not being put on heavy medication, he was able to keep his lucidity and his focus and concentration and lift himself solely out of his depression with the support of his wife and son, and assimilate into the community. If he'd been medicated, it's very difficult, practically impossible if a person's heavily medicated, to bring themselves out of a depressive state. There was another man, also a lovely man, and his wife was lovely as well, but not as astute as the young son of the former man. This man came in, his walking wasn't great, but he was independent. He became depressed as well, highly anxious, and he was medicated. And unfortunately, this really affected his walking pattern, and he developed Parkinson's type symptoms, festinating gait, pill rolling tremor. And, he really went downhill after that. Because he was put on that medication, he didn't have that ability or strength to come out of it, because when you're clouded with medication, you can't be lucid. So they were just two comparative examples. So in terms of social justice issues of people living in dementia units, a lot of it comes down to the power of attorney. If the power of attorney is generous, supportive, broad-minded, and focuses more on giving positive opportunities to the person rather than being risk-averse, that is the ideal. So that in terms of positive opportunities, take, for example, walking, the very big subject of walking and being able to get outside, orientate yourself to the world, Mother Nature, the seasons, the sun, the birds and the bees. It's so important. If you have a power of attorney who takes you out for walks, outings, gets you the magazine subscription, the newspaper, anything you need to support you, that you need for your cognition and your social life and your happiness, they support you in that way and bring it in or get it organised, then you're in a good position. It's also important too for the power of attorney to be a bit imaginative and not to purely go by the book. Like, often it's not possible for the power of attorney to supply and provide everything, but look outside the square. If they're working and unable to take the person out for walks, then look in the wider circle, friends, family, relatives. There's going to be one or two young people, surely, who have time on their hands, who are kind enough, generous enough, and good enough in the weekends to take, granddad or the uncle or the auntie or whoever out for a walk. If there's two independent, capable young people, say 18 and up, two people, they will be able to take someone with dementia out for a walk, one person holding them with the good upper arm grip one side, one on the other. The person's perfectly safe. You're not going to get lost. And if they trip, you've got one person each side of the person with dementia to just hold them up. And there's no tripping hazard. So two capable young people can easily take a person with dementia out for a walk. It's not a problem. Even if they were on a walking frame or are on a walking frame, better without the walking frame, just arm in arm each side, and they can walk along with you. Or a wheelchair, if you'd prefer that. That, of course, is safe. The person's not going to go anywhere. And as long as you're, manage the wheelchair safely, there's no problems with that, going up and down curbs and slopes, etc. There's a little bit of a knack getting the person in and out of the wheelchair and into the car. But if you have a second person there holding the wheelchair, really it's not a problem. Okay, so these are all the aspects, or not all, some of the aspects around justice issues, social issues with people in dementia units. But really, most of the time, all the time, really, the standard is tell the truth and inform the dementia resident what is going on and where they live, unless that initial point of bringing them into the unit, you can't find a way of being able to explain to them what's happening, and you just need to white lie the situation through. That's the only time really to do that. From that point on, tell the truth and lay out everything clearly for the person so they absolutely know what's going on and can start to adjust and assimilate to that. Some people will come into the dementia unit with your explanation to them of that, and if they accept that, fantastic. That's the best way by far. Explaining about the memory problems, the health and safety hazards, the inability to live at home because of not being able to manage, and all the reasons for it. Many partners explain that to their, loved one, and if they accept that, good. But if they can't accept it, won't accept it, too difficult, just give that white lie initially, but in the first few days of them coming in, or as soon as you can, then go right into the trajectory of what the situation is and explaining the details of it. And as long as they know that you're there to support, you're with them on the journey, then they're much more likely to accept it, which they need to, because if they don't accept it, the stress, the cortisol, the autoimmune system, everything just becomes so rocky and distressing and disturbing for them. So we have to try and keep things as settled as possible with support. So I've written about these topics at length. The resident's voice, all you need to know when a person first comes into a dementia unit, a lot of reading, important reading, this one, and equally companion book for when a person is in a dementia facility and the things that can arise and how to manage and apply positive, practical techniques to assist. My background's physiotherapy. Lifelong I was a physio and then a diversional therapist after that. And so as a physio, everything is practical and positive, all based on motivation, a lot of it. So that same style of thinking and attitude I put into these techniques. Now the techniques are at the back of both books, epilogues of both books, as in these videos. So thank you for your support and likes. Please pass on the links, and I appreciate your support. Thank you.